Marfoogle TV. We're going to talk about a whole lot today, going live in 3, 2. All right, what is going on, guys? What's up, Foogle fam? We've already got lots of great people in here. Kathy Paina, mahalo, and again, aloha. We've got Space Ace, Angela Gillette, we have Jillian Mason, we have Priscilla F, and so many more awesome people. Thank you, Bobby Sue, for being one of the first mods in the door. I appreciate that. And of course, thank you, Ilea. Thank you, all of the rest of the mods, including Jammer and Chance. Hope all of you guys are doing great. All right, let's get into it. Iran buys material from China for 800 ballistic missiles. So I've said so many times that it's beating a dead horse at this point that Iran is directly connected with China. They have essentially had supplies going into Iran. You, of course, also, I've talked about how North Korea has been getting tons of supplies from China, shipped directly from ship to North Korea, that they are then putting right through North Korea, then to Russia. With Iran, they are heavily in support, too. All of these countries are connected. As far as the peace deal that goes on with Iran, well, it's going to crap. And there's a lot of evidence to say that we are preparing for that. Just yesterday, we covered that Ukraine is not going to be getting some of the drone protection that they thought they would, because the U.S. is essentially grabbing those drone protective systems and then basically reassigning them to U.S. soldiers in the Middle East. So that tells you that they are not exactly thinking that this is going to go too well. So again, it said that Iran has ordered from China thousands of tons of chemical compound used in ballistic missile propellant, a move that appears to be a signal and aggressive expansion of its missile capabilities. This is, again, from the Wall Street Journal. The material is expected to arrive in the coming months and be used in the manufacture of hundreds of ballistic missiles, potentially trained on Israel. Sources cited in the report said that the portions of the shipment might be handed over to Iran's jihadist proxies in the region, such as the Houthis in Yemen. So all of the Houthis that, again, our president said that any Houthi attacks on the U.S. or U.S. Status would actually hold Iran responsible. Well, there's been a lot of back and forth. There's been supposed peace deals and this and that. Well, all of it's fallen apart, and we can tell it is. The Ayatollah has essentially said that the enrichment deal that we're offering them, which is a very low enrichment deal that allows them nuclear power, that it's rude and arrogant. So this doesn't look to be going in the direction we thought it would. We're going to talk about this and so much more. We're going to talk about the mega tsunamis. We're going to talk about a huge escalation. We're going to talk about AI, as in artificial eyes. We'll talk about World War III. It's all going to be on tonight's show, so do not go anywhere. Nothing in the show should be considered legal, medical, or financial advice. The views of the callers can differ considerably and do not necessarily reflect my opinion, Dex's opinion, or anyone else who works with the show. You should always do your own research and consult with professionals. The internet is full of fake news, so please take everything with a grain of salt. If you have not already, it helps us out if you end up going through any of our affiliates, and it helps you out if you end up protecting yourself against cybercrime. NordVPN is one of the best and one of the easiest to use. If you do not have a virtual private network, it protects your IP address, which is your online identity, which actually connects to your real address and everything else. It also connects to you. If you know anything about how they are data logging and basically getting your profiles down, you can prevent that by having a VPN. Nord is, again, one of the easiest. Download it. It's like an on switch and off switch. All you have to do. Go to marfooglenews.com/VPN. Not only will you get a giant discount on this, but you will also be helping us. I appreciate your support, and I appreciate everyone that goes through any of our affiliates. Can't say thank you enough. All right, what is going on, guys? It is Adam, a.k.a. Marf, and this is Marfoogle TV. Remember, you have a full bibliography of every single article, tweet, video, picture, document over on the website, marfooglenews.com. You have to look for the last 48. Just look for today's thumbnail. Mega tsunamis, huge escalation, AI equals AI, and World War III. Then you will find a full list of our sources. That way you have exactly where we got the information from. All right. Thank you, everybody, for making it in so far. Let's bring in my co-internet brother, Dex James. What is going on, and how are you doing today?
Well, hello, Adam. Hello, Fugel fam. I am doing just fine.
So, Catherine, Night Owl, so many more. Rip Curl, thank you for joining us. We've got one of our other awesome mods, longtime mods, Rip Curl Readiness. Make sure to go check him out and all of the other mods over on marfugelnews.com/friends. All right, let's get right into it. Why don't you bring in the next story, which is the mystery balloons near Kim Jong-un's capsized warship.
Yeah, so all these different satellite images they've been analyzing during this debacle when the ship was being launched off the side of the dry dock there into the water and then capsized because the bow of the ship stayed on land and the after the ship hit the water and caused it to turn over. One of the things they've just recently released is there's been a whole bunch of balloons, they're saying, and they don't understand why these aerial balloons would be there. There's not a lot of understanding as to what they would be used in the recovery or righting of, if not just recovering of the ship. So satellite imagery has shown dozens of these balloons. You can see some of the arrows there where they're pointing at them floating around the 5,000-ton destroyer. The balloons aren't thought to have played a leading role in righting the vessel, the task that appeared to have been primarily accomplished with cranes, according to maritime experts. But the balloons could have helped maybe keep the ship afloat. I don't know how that makes sense because that's a heavy ship, and I don't really realize what those balloons really can do much there. That seems silly.
Buoys, like, are they sure they're not? It's kind of hard to tell from satellite, but I'm assuming that they have more angles,
Yeah, I'm assuming based on their analysis, they're saying they're in the air. They did say, of course, North Korea is no stranger to using balloons in unusual ways, having sent thousands filled with trash into South Korea in the past. And then they also talked about, that these balloons, mentioned that they didn't necessarily have any specific mention of what they were doing with them in this particular case. So they have said that in the past, in World War II or something like that, there was these warship balloons that would, sort of create a barrage. They were called barrage balloons. They were blimp-shaped floating devices that would create aerial obstacles. I wonder if he was worried that, drones might come in and try to attack his new ship while it was disabled. I don't know if that was part of what he was trying to do, but that's one of the other theories. But yeah, they're kind of confused. Like, why were all these mystery balloons up in the air around the ship?
I wonder if those are celebratory balloons or something to distract whoever's nearby. So if they take a picture, it's blocking the view. And the blue, that looks like it's more tarp. Is that blue tarp, or is that just them color coding the thing, or what is that?
I think that's the tarp coming off, because the whole thing was covered in tarp in blue.
But then we saw a picture of it uncovered.
Yeah. The picture we showed last night is more current. This is a picture probably in between. This is probably right after I don't know if it's right. No, it's not righted here. It's still tipped over in this picture. But the picture we showed last night, they had actually righted the ship and it was floating out of the water. Now, they did say that he has promised to have the ship up and running completely refurbished by the end of the month. But most people think that that's not possible.
Do you remember the other theory about why people were putting blue on top of their buildings? Do you remember that? I almost wonder, this thing came out and they said it flipped over. What if something from space hit it? What if we already have some weaponized space weapon up there that hit the side of it and flipped it over when it came off the ramp? What if the story they're telling us is BS and then they immediately covered it with a blue tarp to something like that? There was the Chinese amphibious destroyer that caught fire for 5 days, and then there was the U.S. amphibious destroyer that caught fire in 5 days. 4 or 5 days, burned and burned and burned, and both did not have a reasonable explanation. The U.S. one, you'll go, wait, no, remember they caught that kid and they sent him to jail. They said he hated the Navy. He went to court. He got off of all charges, so it was complete BS. So you have 2 amphibious assault carriers, the almost exact same, and these are weird boats with the back end that opens up that boats can drop out of the back of the carrier. Both caught fire in port for 4 or 5 days, like they were burning, like almost somebody took a magnifying glass on Earth and heated them up. I don't know, but could something like that be used? And is that even true? Well, we know with smaller lasers and things that it actually is. Certain ones that the color will reflect it, right?
Well, yeah, maybe it's because it was more vulnerable in the prone position, and they knew that while it wasn't going to sink because it's laying on its side, it's not necessarily going to sink depending on the design of the hull. It's just technically capsized, not sunken. That if a device was to penetrate it from above, it would create a hole that could cause it to actually then take on more water or take on water in a way it wasn't supposed to. So a theory could be one in which why it was covered in blue. It wasn't just to cover up satellites. Maybe it was covering something else.
I also wonder if the balloons, it looks like they're only on one side, right? This is the base. What if on the other side they're trying to block anybody from seeing it, and these are actually bigger than they look, or they're taller, bigger, tall. They've basically stacked them all along one side. So if you look from the water over here, that you're seeing nothing but hundreds of balloons making kind of a wall, so they don't see what kind of flub up there is. I don't know. It seems
they're all
very weird.
In the same direction that would represent the wind, and the wind may be blowing into them, which would keep them on that side too, right? If the directional winds, which would make sense where that port is, winds coming in off of the water, it would be pushing in that direction.
Yeah, true. And a lot of them are pointed, so that wouldn't be very good for blocking. The ship up above it, it looks like this is a night shot or something. How does that work? What is this light thing? What is this white? Did you see that on the ship right above it? It almost looks like you can see some sort of floodlight on both sides. Is that right, or what do you think that is? Do you see what I'm talking about? This ship right here.
Yeah.
What the hell is that? Huh. Or maybe they're releasing huge bales of salt in the water, because you basically have to pour a lot of salt on whatever comes out of North Korea. I don't know. Let me know in the comments down below. Ilea, thank you. Old McDonald has a car. EI. No. Dad joke of the day. Musk walks back the threat to decommission Dragon spacecraft. Hey, thank you, by the way, joining as a member, Tammy Lee. I thank you. And then Ilea, my dog Paco gets to keep his eye. Thanks for all the prayers. Much love, Team Elon. Hashtag Team Elon. That's hilarious. I'm so sorry that Paco was going through that, and I'm so glad he gets to keep his eye. Although if he did use it, I've had 2 dogs that had one eye, and I've had one dog that was completely blind, and he did just fine. He bumped into a lot of stuff, but he was still the most awesome dog ever. But that was old age and cataracts. But yeah, Musk walks back threat to decommission Dragon spacecraft. Dex, go ahead.
Hey, sorry to jump back, but good comment from Old McDonald had a car, says water pump discharges. I wonder if that was a pumping boat, and that was the water shooting out the sides of the discharges, maybe, in that image we were looking at that looked like light.
Oh, good freaking comment.
I mean, if you look at the cranes on the side of the dry dock, there's shadows, so it looks like a daytime shot, right?
Yeah.
So it's not a night shot, so maybe that's what it was.
Wow, good point. So there could be water inside the ship. There's a hose,
Yeah,
maybe a hose.
That's a pumping ship, probably. It's running a hose, like you said, right?
Wow, good point. Old McDonald has a car. I thought she was just saying that because it was a good dad joke. All right. And then Musk walks back, threat to decommission Dragon spacecraft. So if you don't know this, the president said, I don't know why, the best way to save billions and billions of dollars is to essentially cut all of the contracts for EV vehicles for Musk. This would save, he goes, I don't know why JB didn't do it last administration. He then responds and he says, well, since you guys are threatening to cut all of our contracts out, I'm going to, we could immediately decommission the Dragon spacecraft, being the only transportation for the U.S. soldiers up and down from the ISS, and of course the way that they've been getting stuff up to space. He now has walked that back, and it's so funny. This is how he walked it back. Somebody says something. They said, how about you just take a step back and cool off for a couple days? And he replied, good advice. Okay, we won't decommission Dragon. Like that one tweet has made the news, like that. But it's basically saying he's not going to decommission Dragon. Dex, this back and forth. That's why we said this could change history, because he's now trying, cutting out any kind of advancement in space, because we know Boeing is just crap. Nobody else really is doing what he is doing with the space, and he's basically saying, hey, I'll cut this off. At the same time, all of these contracts are done. I mean, things are changing. Massive history changes just because of this argument. But we don't know if this argument's even real.
What's interesting is he did it as a reply to his original message. And I'm getting a little in the weeds here on how X works, but when he replies to something, it doesn't get seen as much. So if he wants it seen, he will take his reply and not make it a reply and forward or repost their message with his comment on top. So it goes out as a post that everyone sees. So obviously he wanted everybody to see that where he's decommissioning it, but he didn't make a big deal about about putting out this post about we won't decommission it. It was sort of like a buried reply. Does that make sense?
Like he was joking about it. And then if anybody says, "I can't believe you're going to decommission," he can go, "What do you mean?" Right after it, I replied and said, "Okay, just kidding. We won't decommission it."
Right, exactly.
So he technically puts it out there that he's like, "No, I said we're not going to decommission it."
He did have a gap. I mean, there was like a multi-hour gap. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm sure a good chunk of our audience wouldn't care either way, because they don't believe eventually, he's putting out videos on his site. One of the ones he reposted was that of Vast. I showed you that the other day. I kind of scrolled through it. Vast is apparently a company that regular people will be able to, in this video, it shows them, it's kind of a representation, but this woman pressing an elevator button, it says like 214, and then the one above that says space. And then she launches up in what looks like a SpaceX capsule thing and goes up and stays in a hotel in space and sleeps on a bed that's basically a blanket pinned to the wall, and she's sleeping upright. And they're doing all sorts of stuff in this really modern apartment looking space station. And, they talk about in just the next couple years that regular people will be able to buy tickets to space, and that in 4 or 5 years that we're going to be, we're going to have a habitat on Mars, at the very least on the moon. So I highly, highly doubt that that's still on track for 2029, but who knows? They also say the Golden Dome is on track for then, but what happens with that too? Dex, nobody has talked about this, and mark my words. In the next 2 or 3 days, I bet you there's going to be talk about the Golden Dome, and probably over the weekend, maybe Monday, because right now, if this riff is any kind of, real underlining to it, he was the runner-up. He was the first runner-up for the Golden Dome system, which the Golden Dome was. He's the only one.
He's the only one that can deliver it. And I say deliver it. The part that he was doing wasn't necessarily building the space lasers or anything like that. He was just the biggest part of the contract that he has is the literal shipping of equipment into space. I mean, he launches more rockets than anybody. He's got a system that was reusable, and they can put a lot of gear in space, and they send a lot of gear in space for our military, for Space Force. And for Golden Dome, it's like, who else would they go with? I mean, nobody would even come close to being able to put the payloads up anytime soon that he's doing.
I want to pull this up because do you guys realize that this was the last time we saw them together on good terms? The Elon, now I have my questions, and I don't exactly think, I think, man, people can get hit in the face from their kids, right? But this black eye, right? The day after this, all of a sudden, this all happened. That was the last time we saw him, and the day after is when all of this stuff happened. Do you guys realize that? Isn't that weird, Dex? Like, that literally you have this happen, and then all of a sudden that they're beefing. So
yeah, he gave him a key, the golden key. He gave him an award, brought him in the Oval Office, said he did a great job. He said goodbye with his black eye, and then literally like maybe a day after that, he starts throwing some jabs at the bill, and then it escalated into yesterday, which was just, taking it to the nuclear level.
Yeah, the first day after, he says the big beautiful bill is undermining Doge. then it started from there, and it just went sideways. And some believe that that's the sign of having some sort of implant control device, right? I'm not saying that's what it is, but I will say it's pretty strange that right after this happened, it went completely south, and it was basically Elon starting to throw the blows first. It is weird. I mean, gosh, what if? And the things we think are so crazy and such, science fiction, look at what 30, 40 years ago was declassified, the stuff they were doing. I mean, MK Ultra is not a fake thing. That's a real thing that happened. And a lot of people believe it still happens. So, I mean, these are real events that happened. Imagine what they do with technology today. Oh, and then there's another half of you probably didn't see. The only reason I saw it was free on Disney. And the Captain America movie. Did you ever see the new one? The new one with the...
No,
it's not the... It's the new Captain America. And it shows them basically having a flashing phone, and then they all of a sudden go crazy. I didn't get all the way through. In fact, I only got it through about that part and fell asleep through it. But they show a flashing phone basically trigger them, right? I thought that was wild, because that kind of technology has been talked about for a long time. There's been a lot of predictive kind of programming and a lot of stuff that's right blatantly in your face that's, real tech that they just put in silly movies, and then you think, it's just, that's movie stuff. But it's not. China's working on stuff like that. And that's most likely where the inspiration came from, right? Neurostrike technology, just look it up. Before we move on, make sure to go check out EMP Shield. This is a great thing to have on your car. It's probably one of the best, especially if we have an EMP strike from any of our adversaries, because this will ground the signal and keep your car running so you can get home to your family or get out to bug out. In less than 500 trillionths of a second, this will save your device. Again, that's trillionths of a second. This is not just your run-of-the-mill surge protector. This is a surge protector on crack cocaine. Okay, this is the most insane surge protector in existence for your vehicle. Go to marfooglenews.com/EMP and make sure to use the code MARF. The same agencies like DHS and DOD are using this technology. Again, the DEMSO team is using this technology to help protect the Texas grid. Go over to marfooglenews.com/EMP and make sure to use the code MARF. You'll get $50 off. You will help our channel, and you will, of course, get that on top of the Liberty sale that is going on. You can also get it for your generators, your homes, your ham radios, every device you can think of. They make one for that if you want to keep it running. All right, and that's marfooglenews.com/EMP, and then use that code MARF. Or just go to the website and you can find it there as well. All right, and then U.S. power grid getting critically tight. Time to consider backup power at home. Dex, do you want to go over some more of the warnings that are coming out?
Yeah, so what they're saying is there's this called a critical reliability threshold that is a industry recommended 20% reserve margin. And they're expecting that this year we are actually going to be getting at that margin, and that by obviously somewhere it was going to continue to decline and even be down to 14% by the year 2027. But the fact that we're reaching that number, and if you go down to this, there's a line chart, you guys can see much more clearly in the line chart. It shows you the different grids, the ERCOT, MESO, which is the mid-continent, PJM, which is mid-Atlantic, and then it's just got an average of the US, which is the thick, darker line in there. And of course, the red line shooting across that is the critical reliability threshold. You can see that we've always been way above it. And that 15% mark or 20% mark is what we're hitting right now, which they say is dangerous. And critical is the 15. So when you hit 15, it's at critical. And that's where the risk of grid reliability issues soar, as they call it. And this is coming from, the recommendations of the people that run the grid and how they manage the grid and the way they're supposed to build it and maintain an amount of threshold above the actual usage.
What is the E? What is the E after it says 2024, 2025 E, 2026 E? What does that mean? Is that, do you know?
Estimated.
Estimated. Okay.
Yeah, because that's the future.
So why does it go down so fast? Or why does it go down so fast?
So it's going down because capacity is usage is going up, and capacity is not going up. Like, we're not building more power. We're just consuming more power. Everything needs more electricity. We've got more data centers coming online. We got more EVs coming online. We got more, everything just requires more electricity, and we got more heat. So we need more air conditioning. We got, et cetera. Right. And they've been dismantling and turning off, in the last administration, turning off power plants that were running off of fossil fuel. So the amount of output that we're making was less. So the estimated is, if we're going to continue to consume more, but we're not going to be making more power, then obviously we're going to get closer to that critical reliability and even go down to zero. Now, obviously, that's estimated based on the path and projections that we're on now. Presumably, as a country, you would change that, and that's why we saw Donald just do the executive order to sort of streamline the requirements and stuff for nuclear energy. Doesn't really do a lot for us. I mean, yeah, we'll bring on some nuclear energy, but it's not like the most inexpensive way to bring power. It does bring some significant power, but it also takes a lot of time.
Look at that, and so that hence the whole nuclear power project, everything else. But look at this, ERCOT, Texas, right? Temporarily buffered by what? By renewables, but projected to fall into critical territory by 2028. Think about Spain going out, and after Spain, the entire grid went down. You had, of course, the U.S. come out right after that, a day and a half after, and say, oh, we found radio equipment inside some of the renewable converters, right? These inverters that were inverting the power from the renewables into our grid. And if those fail, they cause a cascading failure. Well, we have firewalls, so China can't just hack into our transformers. Oh, wait, but since they made them, it seems like they put some physical hardware in there in the middle of a building-sized transformer that they couldn't find unless they took apart this whole, probably $1 million transformer. Probably nobody wanted to take it apart, and they found it. So it seems like if you were going to hit somebody with a power grid-related attack, when do you think you would do it? I don't know. It seems like even if we didn't touch it right now, if we don't get more power, that's exactly what's going to happen. And it seems like we are not being filled in on something, right? So this is, again, national effective spare capacity projected to decline to an alarming 14% by 2027. Once this margin drops below 15%, the risk of grid reliability issue soars. So get your gas generators, get your solar generators. Highly recommend the Bug Out XP. Again, if you haven't checked that out, that's over on our website as well. Again, that's a high capacity solar generator that is made, at least the everything is front loaded here. You're not going to have any back doors into it. All things random. Elon is now making peace with T. The BBB does not need some changes. Elon is right about that. The big beautiful bill does need some changes. Elon is right about that. Crazy country right now. So, yeah, we'll talk about that here in a second. But yeah, he says Elon is now making peace with Trump. And so this is two different pieces. This one piece came out today, and both Dex and I are like, this sounds familiar. I actually thought when I saw this today, I thought, wow, is this happening again? And then under careful inspection, we realized that this is basically from that same event. But now they're saying that they've solved it, right? So if you remember, we covered this back in 2024. And essentially in Greenland, the same place that we talked about having this 650-foot mega tsunami inside this fjord that kept happening. It basically kept sloshing back and forth every 90 seconds. They have some pictures here of where this happened. I believe there. And yeah, this is the Dixon Fjord in Greenland, right? It did take a couple lives. There were only a few actual people living. I think 4 people or 4 homes or whatever it may have took. So it was way somewhere where basically nobody lives. Every 90 seconds, it was sending this signal. The whole Earth could feel this. It wasn't, though, caused by an earthquake. They said it was caused by a landslide, and then they said, well, we don't actually know. In fact, now they're saying they believe, with international help of all these teams around the world, they figured out this puzzle, figuring out why it even happened. Now, they say it was a landslide, but I almost think this is a 650-foot wave. And back then I thought, well, what if this was a test of the Poseidon? What is the time frame of this happening in 2023, a year before we covered it? What was the time frame of this, and then the Poseidon being released and them being talked about, and them saying that they actually, tested these things? And we're like, where the heck would you test a tsunami nuke, right? A nuke that goes off in the water and causes something like this. Well, what if something was tested there? What if this is a U.S. testing one in response to the stuff that happened? Or what if this is NATO or somebody else testing one? I don't know, but by this, it just does not, it didn't make sense. Unusual heartbeat in the crust. Seismic stations normally record frantic scribbles during earthquakes. This time the trace formed smooth peaks spaced 1.5 minutes apart and barely weakened over the better part of 2 weeks. Is that not insane? 2 weeks straight. No site had ever produced such a persistent global signature. One modeling group pegged the slosh at about 8.5 feet. The second group estimated 23 to 30 feet. The disagreement stemmed different assumptions about the fjord's shape, but both sets of simulations agreed that source, the landslide-driven wave. And they were saying that this started out as a 650-foot wave that ended up sloshing around for 2 weeks straight. And it bounced off, the surge barreled down the 2-mile corridor, bounced off the headland, and tore back again, wrecking about $200,000 in equipment and an empty research post at Ella Island. Which is also weird because it actually ruined this very specific spot that was doing research on it. Kind of funny. And then water did not calm after the first pass. Instead, it began rocking from wall to wall, a motion known as a psych, or is it really? Psych? It's going to stop, I swear. Psych. And then every 90 seconds, somebody has to go, psych. Just kidding. That was horrible. And then the mystery drew 70-plus researchers from 41 institutions. When we set out on a scientific adventure, everybody was puzzled and no one had the faintest idea what caused this signal. Again, the signal was an incredibly weird thing. They were getting this signal through the earth. All we knew that it was somehow associated with the landslide. We only managed to solve this enigma through huge interdisciplinary and international effort. So what's the difference between the first one and the second one? Again, you go back, mystery tremors, right? Were from massive 9-day tsunami. 9-day. Again, they then said it was 2 weeks. So I was thinking, this got to be different, right? Well, there was actual several things how they looked and how they saw the changes and how the actual spot changes. It kept appearing every 90 seconds exactly. Is that just freaking weird? Like, this does not seem right. And again, this was the weirdest part. When colleagues first spotted this signal last year, it looked like nothing like an earthquake. We called it an unidentified seismic object, a USO. Is that freaking weird or what? Dex, when you saw this, I mean, it just seemed like a rehash. But the thing is they're still saying that now they say they've now totally figured out it's a landslide, but they said that last year. So what they're really saying is I think that they are just continuously curious about it, that scientists will not let this go. The second set of scientists looked at this and they did not believe the first scientists, so then they did it. The fourth set of scientists have now looked at it and said, yeah, we think it's a landslide. So why do they keep looking into this if there's something about this that's so odd that these scientists are just going, this can't be it. And then they can't come up with any other answer, and to save face, to go, yeah, it was a landslide. That's what I think. Dex, what did you think about this? I mean, it was just weird.
Well, yeah, it is. It seems like the main thing is that they just have more data, and they have a much better understanding, I guess, now because of the detailed data that they're able to pull together and prove what it is, as opposed to have the theories of what it was. So, the more contextual details from the
So
satellite imagery and the broader research references that they had.
so now they have the satellite imagery 2 years later, and now they're like sure of it, right? After it's done, and it hasn't happened since those 9 days. I don't know, man. I think that there's something weird hidden here, and I still think that it's weird that after this happened, all of a sudden there was the secondary push to get Greenland. Like, they really want Greenland, and they say it's for national security issues, right? I don't know. I don't believe that we're told everything. This explanation continuing to come up, I believe this is also in response to people continuing to ask questions about it. Greenland apparently has a group that have continued to ask questions about this, and said that they do not think that this was, some sort of landslide driven thing. But again, who knows? Everything on the internet is absolutely wild at this point. Just like the movie Mountainhead, it's like you don't know what to believe anymore. K Wildman, thanks to all of yours and Dex's hard work to keep us informed. Keep it up. K Wildman, thank you so much for the support. And seriously, thank you for the massive support for everybody that just shows up every day. We appreciate it. And again, Wave couldn't dissipate its energy, they said. It just kept going and going and going and going. They could not redo this in a simulation. They have these water sloshing scientific experiments. Imagine if you sloshed a cup. Imagine if you did this, right? And it just kept going for 9 days straight. What makes sense about that? Also, they say landslide driven, right? But if it's sloshing like this, if this was to continue for 9 days, right? That would require me holding it and doing this for 9 days. And then if you look at the Earth side of it, the Earth scientists over the last couple of years have said that the Earth has an unusual heartbeat, that the crusts are doing weird things, that the center of our core in the same time period, you look at it within 3 months of this, you had all of these scientists talking about the core going and then supposedly reversing. And then, of course, even independent journalists said that they couldn't agree on that. But how do you keep something sloshing for 9 days? And how do you keep it going every 90 seconds exactly? You guys ask the questions and then read their example of it. And, well, we've got data. But since we don't know how to understand that data, we're all like, oh, okay. Ow, my balls. Are those Crocs? Where can I get Crocs? I don't know. Something about it just sets me off. And then it really grinds my gears. Scientists create an artificial eye that could give AI human-like sight. Dex, this is creepy as hell.
Yeah, it's super creepy. Well, you gotta wonder how much better it's going to be this way versus just using straight up video cameras. But I have a sneaking suspicion that while this is the infancy of this technology, at first you're probably going to say, it doesn't sound that powerful. Just remember, it's the first time. So what happens when they iterate it on it 10 more times? But researchers in Japan have developed a self-powered artificial eye that mimics human vision by using solar cells to distinguish colors with high precision down to 10 nanometers of wavelength difference. So the device can perform logic operations and recognize motion and color with up to 82% accuracy, thanks to its ability to produce both positive and negative electrical responses based on the light input. And because it requires no external power and filters information like a biological retina does, the technology could lead to an ultra efficient machine vision system for use in autonomous vehicles or wearable health monitors and remote sensors. The technology could also, be used to help people that are colorblind. There's all sorts of things that they can come up with for this technology. But the main thing is it doesn't need any power, and its capabilities of seeing and distinguishing the different color variations, even up to that 10 nanometer, which is not as much as our eye, but it's still enough to get started with. It's able to see motion and see lots of different things. So very creepy technology when you think about it. Very cool technology too when you think about like the advancements that they're doing. It's just creepy when you think about how this could be applied, right? Sure, you might want a really great sensor on the front of your car to help you see better at night, but do you really want this to be inserted in an artificial intelligence robot that's running around policing the streets, right? So yeah, lots of good you can think of, and certainly lots of scary you can think of.
Jake Malone says China has created infrared contact lenses to see at night. So what's the big deal? So we covered that, by the way, but this is a complete eye system. This is something that would give them the ability to have as much sensory depth and perception as a human being. This is something where you would be able to replace a human being. Again, they used to say, oh, well, we do the work that can't be done by machine and that people don't want to do, right? They had the really, really, really low wage stuff. Well, that was when you had robots that couldn't do things that humans could. Very soon, with technology like this, not only will people be able to get eye replacements, AIs will be able to get eyes. Dex, go ahead.
Yeah, and the fact that they're using solar panels technology to use the color detection, if you didn't catch that, it's the same technology that's giving it its power. Obviously, it's not like you got giant solar panels in your head, right? But the micro technology that's being used here is also generating its power from the light it's perceiving. So it's almost like free energy in the sense. Of course, if it's a lights out scenario, maybe it doesn't see anything, and maybe it doesn't work either. But in light environments where it's detecting the colors, detecting the light, it's actually also pulling that light as its power supply.
And if you haven't heard about, what is it? Li-Fi. Li-Fi is light Wi-Fi. Essentially, the lights in the bathroom at the mall, the horrible lighting in the mall. That will be the source of the internet in the future. They say that it's actually faster than regular Wi-Fi. It's faster than Wi-Fi could ever get, apparently. That is the future, that these lights, these LED lights, would actually be the emitters of our Wi-Fis in the future. Think about that with eyes that not only have solar panels and that perceive from light. The light would not only give it energy, but it would give it information. Or it could have a hookup to something where it could respond to things or interact with things. I mean, it's kind of a crazy thing. It could also give humans that ability. Think about Neuralink and a combination of something like this. Now, those contact lenses that could let them see at night, that's very cool technology too. It's very, very scary if you have human beings with that kind of technology that could possibly be, I don't know, invading at night. But yeah. And then South Korea's new left-wing president. And isn't it funny that the last president who did the martial law gets replaced with the total left-wing president? You guys have heard me rant on about this. The last president got taken out after that martial law, and that martial law was put in place over one night, and he said it was because that there were people from China that had infiltrated the South Korean government, that they were trying to take people out, that they were trying to get people in his party taken out or impeached, and that they were trying to do kind of a coup d'etat type of thing. And that's why he believed it was an emergency situation. It was a national security issue, and that they did this martial law. He then had to stay in the presidential palace. He had 160 guards basically guarding the way. They were trying to get him out and basically arrest him. They finally did. They finally impeached him. The day that they impeached him and it was finalized in court that he was not going to be president, they actually spotted 1,500 North Koreans on the border of South Korea. And on top of this, his claim was that China infiltrated and was trying to help all of the sympathetic side to North Korea. Well, look at this news. This further confirms exactly what we were talking about. Look at this. South Korea's new left-wing president promises closer ties with Kim Jong-un. There are infiltrations going on in every country in the world. This is a world war that is secretly happening right under our noses, and people are so blind to it. I mean, I saw this coming a mile away. This new interim president now says he's going to get closer with Kim Jong-un. This is exactly what the claim was by the president who declared that law. Dex, when you saw this, I'm sure that's the first thing you thought of.
Well, of course, and getting close to North Korea is the same as getting close to China. But the interesting thing that it's not just what he's saying; it's also what he's not saying. He's been accused of being close to China. He's been accused of wanting to be closer to China. So what is he not saying? He's not mentioning China at all right now, because he's trying to distance himself from that or hide that fact. But like he's only talking about North Korea. He hasn't bothered to come out and talk specifically, but at least others have called this out, is that he's not talking about China, where he probably should. Like even if you were, even if they're your adversary, you're going to talk about U.S.-China relations right now and how does it affect South Korea, because it does affect South Korea. But he won't mention that. He's only mentioning North Korea right now. So that's the other thing. Is what he's not saying.
And by the way, however, Mr. Lee's position is clouded by allegations that he has facilitated the transfer of funds to North Korea. South Korean and do you think North Korea, with its hermit state, could have infiltrated and got this done on their own? Absolutely not. That's why the last president said that this was China infiltrating and helping North Korea. Hence, North Korea, there's a tit for tat. You scratch my back, I give you artillery missiles, right? North Korea essentially has been taking containers from China, putting them through to Russia. Russia's been harming Ukraine, which has in turn been doing all of this stuff. And then we were infiltrated. I believe we were infiltrated for years, and that they're still infiltrating in a lot of ways. That China infiltrated our government, and that's why we have been so divided. You've seen these overnight cultural changes that happened, and some of them so absurd. No other country. I mean, like there's only the Western countries right now, most of which are being accused of being infiltrated, are all having such crazy cultural things that are such a cultural shock that 90% of people don't agree with, but people are just getting droned or brainwashed into believing in, are things that are completely dividing people. I mean, you're talking about majority of the people having something pushed onto them that they are never, ever, 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 ever going to see eye to eye on. I mean, situations where the majority really does not agree with this. And you think, like in the United States, when all of these things were being pushed over the last few years, you would think the majority was, right? Because you got Hollywood, co-owned by China, and co-owned by the people that really, really want bad things to happen here, and the people that own both sides of the military-industrial complex. Those same people made it look like, oh, everybody on TV is doing it. Well, the people on TV make up a very, very small percentage of this world. Then you see all these people on the streets with, you know what they believe in. You don't even have to, you take 1 second, look at them and go, yeah, we pretty much know who they, believe in. And you go, wow, there's a lot of them, but it's not. It's actually not the majority. And then when you see one person for this, one person for that, who won the prez, you think, oh, it's half and half. I don't think it's half and half. I think it is, it's again, you had infiltration at every level of this. And you have the people that are super gullible, which I think that there's a lot less gullible people than people think. A lot more people are waking up to what's going on. A lot of those gullible people, they are easy to, trick. They're easy to brainwash. And media and something as little as a free burger somewhere will get them to do something. Like, a free burger, it's got to be good. It's free. It's got to be good. Those people are everywhere. You mean I get a free burger and a dozen donuts? Well, that's $20, $27. That's $27. 4 months later, they're unfortunately not with us, but God rest their souls. Before we move on, speaking of God rest their souls, hopefully you will not have a funeral because of a small finger cut during a disaster, because honestly, if we do have a situation where the hospitals are not running or the pharmacies are down, definitely want to have on hand something like a Jase case. This is a service that's very easy. You can do it from your tablet phone, computer, from the comfort of your couch, and get yourself a kit of all of the most commonly prescribed antibiotics sent right to your door. And you can even say, hey, board-certified doctor, on this short appointment, go, hey, I would like something on your add-on list. We have got an asthmatic in the family. They can go, okay, we'll throw in albuterol. There's all sorts of other things on the add-on list, so make sure to go check that out. Go to marfooglenews.com/Jase and make sure to use the code MARF. If you do not have this on hand, well, just think about who makes it, who makes 90% of them, and then look at where the world is heading. I would highly recommend having this on hand because this is going to be one of the first things to disappear if we ever go to war with China. And if you listen to, generals and commanders of our military that are been sounding the alarm for like 2 years, then you might want to think about it. Like Minahan and, of course, now Chichin and Wycheck. Or I think it's Wycheck. So yeah, marfooglenews.com/Jase. Make sure to use the code MARF. And then this is just, it was the most predictable thing ever, right? Now you have everyone demanding they answer the question, is he in the files? They want to release the files. Everybody is yelling at him, both sides of the aisle. Everybody says, hey, we want to know, is this true? Is he in the files? Well, yeah, the president is in the files. He's definitely on the flight logs, which is in the files. Is there more than that? Did they just trick the Congress into absolutely doing formal requests to release this immediately? What is this? The EpiPen files, which again has everybody on it. It has the other side of the aisle on it. A lot of people from the other side of the aisle. It has T-Man in it too. So Pam Bondi hit with formal demand to answer Musk's claim about the president and EpiPen. This was from the first day of this debacle. Everybody was saying this was a fake setup to possibly get them to try to demand release of it. Then when they do release it, that the president is cleared of all charges, that he rode the plane twice or something, and the plane shows them going from New York to California or something one day, and he leaves to an airport or something. All right, just everybody's been thinking about these theoreticals and saying, oh, but then what you do find is that, say, Mr. Bill, our ex-president, he went to the plane, he went island 55 times, and there's pictures of him in the files, and there's pictures of this and that, and video evidence that they got from the weird multicolored, temple. Who knows? But it is weird that it is happening almost exactly like the, folks that theorize this. Now it's happening. Dex, now she's getting demands from actual congressmen, and they're formally saying, hey, what's going on?
Yeah, the fallout of the Elon, tantrum yesterday, and some may say it was calculated, but some may say it was orchestrated on both sides, or just calculated on his part, not just him being mad. Maybe he's got something up his sleeve, and to that extent, when you think about like not just the EpiPen stuff that he laid out on the Dawn, but specifically like the whole polling of whether or not there should be a new party, that closed out with like over 5 million voters, and they had over 80%, 80.4% of the respondents said that they were in favor of another party. And which is interesting because then, it's everything from, he's got Congress people now going after Pam Bondi for EpiPen. He's riled up a base potentially to create a party. He's now called it the American Party. He at one point started to turn off SpaceX, but then he rolled that back, which we've already talked about. But a lot has come from this. And when you talk about the American Party, as they're calling it now, there were some stats put out that were pretty impressive. When you think about it, 43% of Americans claim independence. So that means they're not on either side, right? So that's a decent number of people that could fall into another party. Among independents, 56% of them actually view Elon favorably, and about 34% of the Democrats view him favorably or positively. And then even on the Republican side, like 72% approval rating on the budget cutting he was doing. So if you think about it, he actually has a chance to create a sizable third party if he's really true about this and does create something called the American Party, because it's got the money to do it.
And imagine that, because independent has never had a chance. Like we've
since Ross Perot. He screwed it up for everybody. Not screwed it up, but they changed the laws after Ross Perot came in, and you had to have a 15%.
I was a little kid, so explain that.
Yeah. So Ross Perot made a huge run, spent a ton of money. It was very successful. I think basically took a bunch of votes away, and we got who was it, Clinton at the time, because of Perot, or some suggest that. Now, that when that happened, they changed the rules for things like debates and others, that a third party had to have 15% of whatever there's, I don't know if it was like a polling or something, but they had to have a 15% base or something like that for polling to even be acknowledged and brought forward into the debates and stuff. So without that sizable number, it made it pretty much impossible for these third parties to even get very far. I mean, we've got other parties, but you never hear about them. There's like the Green Party, there's the Libertarian Party, which a lot of people like, but it's not a lot of people like it enough to make much of a difference. I think there's maybe been a congressperson or two in the Libertarian Party that's made it through.
What I remember of Ross Perot is the constant making fun of him. When I was a little kid in 1992, I was probably 8 years old. Saturday Night Live would make fun of him. They had the big-eared, I forget, was it David Schwimmer, or no? It was David Spade that I believe played Ross Perot on all of the Saturday Night Lives. But I remember watching. I had very little supervision when I was a kid. I would stay up late and watch Saturday Night Live like every Saturday. And I remembered all of those skits. And they even made fun of him on, on Nickelodeon shows too. On All That, or whatever the skit show was. But it was like, he was all over the place. Because back then they were also doing the Nickelodeon like Rock the Vote thing. Or whatever they called it back then. Slime the Vote or whatever it was. But I remember that. And it's like, so we've never had a president that wasn't either one side or the other. We've never had an independent president. So it's like there's two parties. That's so crazy to think that there's just two choices. And it's always been like that. Bound by Mountains, this mess is absolutely insane. I hope everyone is preparing for worst case scenario. Thank you, Adam Dex Mods, for all the Foogle fam. Glad to have caught a live show. Never miss a show since 2019. Bound by Mountains, thank you. And thank you to all of the others watching the replay. There are so many people that watch the show the next day. I can't say thank you enough to all of you. And again, thank you to all of those that have done super thanks as well. We really do appreciate that. Working for him 2 days ago on Get Ready for First Strike. Working for him, thank you. Boring Hornet on Breaking 40,000 Troops Requested, thank you. User RJK4KLK9VD. Again, you can always change that to something. And then Thomas DU, thank you. Dar and Mindset last month. What up, what up? And Dennis Schall, thank you so much for your support. Bounds by Mountains, All Things Random. Ilea, thank you so much for the support. Bound by Mountains, I believe you are number 2. And K Wildman, you are number 1 supporter tonight, with All Things Random and Ilea being number 3. Thank you guys. Appreciate your support. Thank you so much, Dex. I appreciate your services today.
Much love. Great job, brother.
All right, you guys, have a good night. We'll see you in a little bit. And make sure to watch our video over on Marfoogle News. You can find that there. And, of course, you can find a full bibliography over on marfooglenews.com. That has the last 48 wild developments all right there. Make sure to go check it out. Be safe, be prepared, and Marf out. It is now time for the shoutro. It's not an outro. It's not a shout out. It is a shoutro.